wrote my book. I made my recipes. I traveled all over the country, and I talked about the raw food diet and health. And back then, it was just all about food. But then I realized that there's more to it than food. The spiritual side came into it and everything else. And I realized we have a problem even when people learn and hear about health. The Bible said, my people destroyed for lack of knowledge. Well, we all have knowledge. So how are we destroyed if we all have knowledge? Well, in Hebrew, it actually says we're destroyed for lack of knowledge of His instructions. And He gives us His instructions in Genesis 1:29 when it says the food for man is fruits and vegetables. But man isn't eating fruits and vegetables. And neither are women. So this is the problem. And I still didn't know much of that back then. But as I've been doing this and seeing what's happening out there, I no longer promote a raw food diet. Because when I got into eating a raw food diet meant raw food. Now a raw food diet means raw food cookies, raw food bars, and cakes and pies and all this stuff. So I like to call it a fresh food diet and eat the majority of my food fresh, raw, ripe, organic fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds, as opposed to the raw food junk food, which you hear at most places when it comes to raw food. But I had come back from an illness, and I know what it's like to suffer from a disease, and I connect with a lot of people who are sick. And it's very difficult to understand somebody if you haven't been in their shoes. And I hear people say things all the time. Somebody's very depressed now, and they just told me, oh, my depression is worse than the worst disease you can imagine. Nothing is worse than a death sentence of not knowing our Creator and knowing you don't have a long time to live. Nothing is worse than that. And, well, I could say something's worse than that. Having a family, not knowing our Creator and knowing that might be worse. But still, that's where I once was. And I've come a long way to get to this point. I try to connect with people on an emotional level before I tell them anything about health to begin with. So I want to know a little about them before I start telling them what to do. But it's very simple what to do. You have to work very hard to get sick. But if you keep it simple, you'll remain healthy. The body is an amazing machine and can last a very long time even in today's world. When I was reading a lot of authors, I read an author, Arnold Ehret. Have any of you ever heard of him? He has several great books. One of them is called The Mucusless Diet Healing System. Another one is called Rational Fasting. Well, two great names for books. And then he has some other books out. And his big thing was overeating is one of the big causes, the reasons why we suffer. And today you also hear a lot about alkaline acid. Well, when Arnold Ehret called it mucus-forming foods, mucus-forming foods are actually what we would consider today acidic. And the alkalizing foods is what we would consider mucus-less forming foods. So basically, the raw food diet is a broad term because there are many raw food things that aren't necessarily healthy. Like, for example, the brownie you just had right now, okay, it's a snack. Your body can deal with it if you're eating healthy. But you could eat brownies all day long and say you're on a raw food diet. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's a healthy way to go. So there are many different types of ways to eat a raw food diet today. I personally prefer something called natural hygiene, or at least as close to that as possible, which is thinking how the animals would eat in nature, or how I would eat if I was in nature. And I certainly wouldn't walk up to like an onion on a tree and take the onion and eat it like an apple. Just doesn't, we don't do that. But people got to flavor up their steak, so they'll take onions and chop it on there and cook it and all these things. No, in nature you would grab a piece of fruit and you would eat it. And you wouldn't microwave it, you'd eat it. You wouldn't fry oranges, you would eat them. And nature works and shows us that, you look at the animals in nature, and I'm not the kind of guy that says, well, sharks don't get cancer, No, we're not in nature, we're out of nature, so you have to find the right balance and so on. So I'm not against cooked food, I'm not against even people eating meat if they eat it according to the instructions our Creator gave us, but have fun trying to find that. But I want people to be healthy. I don't want people to have to suffer from the pain of disease. And I want our Creator's will in people's lives. And His will, as He says, is for us to all have a future and a hope. He says it right there in His Word. I pray that you have a future and a hope. And there's no future and hope when you walk into a doctor's office with stage 4 cancer and they say, make your arrangements, that's it, it's over. No, that's not a future and hope. Future and hope is our Creator's words. It says, I prayed to Him and He healed me. You know, I stopped thinking what I wanted. I saw this what He wanted, and He got in my path and He took care of me. And I speak to sick people every single day. Every day. People that die, I see people, or know people that didn't make it and they didn't do these things. But they choose the path that's for them. My own family members won't listen to me. I invited them here. Where are they? So I understand emotionally how hard it could be to live a healthy lifestyle. But on the other hand, I know the word holy means set apart. And trust me, when you look like me, you're considered set apart. But that's what it means, set apart. So in Arnold Ehret's books, he has something called the formula for life, which I call the formula for health. And it's basically power minus obstruction equals vitality. And we're going to be talking about that tonight. Power minus obstruction equals vitality. Whether you